Good day, folks, and welcome back to Ed's Garage at Merton Hyundai. Finally, I get to check out the 2022 IONIQ 5 Ultimate. It's been a long time since this vehicle originally came out, and lots of people have done videos on it, and I've just never had one on my lot to do a video on. Well, we had one a few weeks ago, but I was on vacation, so I missed the first one that came in. But anyway, here it is, finally, the Ultimate. So buckle up, guys. This is going to be a very long video because I'm going to go over every single individual feature on this beautiful vehicle, starting with the outside and then going into the inside, under the hood, in the trunk, all that great stuff. We're going to cover it all, and it's going to be a long video, so I apologize for the length of the video, but honestly, there are a ton of features on this vehicle, of course. So let's get started. Now, this is, of course, the very, very top trim of the IONIQ 5. It's called the Ultimate in Canada, and it has 320 horsepower, 440 foot-pounds of torque. Rockets this thing to 60 miles an hour or 100 kilometers an hour in less than 5 seconds. It is, of course, all-wheel drive, so that'll help to mitigate the wheel spin on those hard accelerations. That's one of the issues that a lot of EVs have. If you have a front-wheel drive EV, because there's not a whole lot of weight over the front wheels, when you floor it, they tend to lose traction quite easily. Now, the IONIQ 5 is either all-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive, and it does exceptionally well mitigating rear-wheel spin on the rear-wheel drive models. On these, you can still break loose of traction. There's enough power to do so, of course, with that twin motor system, motor in the front, motor in the rear. So, very, very fun to drive vehicle. Now, as for features go, this one has got everything, of course. The Ultimate trim is the complete loaded vehicle with the, the panoramic sunroof and the leather interior, etc., etc., etc. So let's start at the front. We're going to go around from the front to the back. So we've got front parking sensors, as you can see here. So the parking sensors on this one are not just on the back, they're also on the front. And in this band of blackness right here, it's actually kind of cool. You can see, if you get real close, you can actually see there's pixels in there as well. So you got pixels in the headlights, pixels up here. And this contains all of the forward-facing radar system and stuff like that. You got the forward-facing camera right there. There's also a camera in the windshield, which I'll talk about in a moment. But this is for the forward-facing camera system for the parking system. So you got that top-down 360 view of the vehicle, and that's what that camera is being used for. Now, of course, on the side of the front of the vehicle, you can see we've got parking sensor there as well, and that's because this vehicle is equipped with something called Smart Park, which I'll demonstrate for you in just a moment. But also on the front, you can see we've got the active shutters here, so these open up when the vehicle needs extra cooling for the battery or the electric motor. And then also on the front, of course, you have the beautiful LED headlights and high beams. So they're all LED on the front, high beams, headlights, daytime running lights, of course, all of that is LED. Now, having a look up in the windshield here, you can see we've got the forward-facing camera for the lane following system, so the lane keep assist, lane centering, as well as autonomous emergency braking, which of course makes use of that camera, as well as the forward-facing radar, which is in that black band, and also junction detection. So that's where it's able to detect if you're making a left turn. It'll detect cars coming towards you and it'll prevent you from going through that intersection if it's a dangerous situation. It also detects cyclists and pedestrians for the autonomous braking, so very, very smart system. Right above that, you can see the little circle there. That is for the windshield wipers. It is, of course, automatic wipers, so that's an infrared light that basically just bounces off the raindrops and then it gets detected to see how much raindrops are on the windshield. That's how that works. And then also, underneath the windshield here, you can see the huge augmented reality head-up display. So that'll bounce off the windshield. I'll see if I can show you that on camera. It doesn't always come up that well on camera, but I'll see if I can show you that a little bit later on. Now, coming around to the side here, you've got 20-inch aluminum alloy wheels. Now, these are wrapped in Michelin's. This is the Primacy Tour low rolling resistance tire, of course, so 225/45 R20, huge wheels. Now, I'm not a huge fan of the actual wheel design. I think it looks fine. I wouldn't say that it's, spectacular, but it is, of course, very aero. This is all very, very flat. Of course, that's going to be very aerodynamic. Now, notice around the wheel well, you've got the sort of interesting design elements going on there. to make it look like it's moving even when it's standing still. So that's one difference of the Ultimate versus all of the other trim levels. They don't get that. You'll notice on the mirror, you've got the daytime, or the turn signal indicators on the mirrors, and also there's a little camera underneath that, and the mirrors fold automatically. So when you lock and unlock the doors, they actually will fold in and fold out as necessary. You've also got the blind spot monitoring indicator right there as well. And this one, of course, has blind view monitor, which again, I will show you a little bit later. By the way, guys, this paint color is the Shooting Star Matte. So it is a matte finish paint, a little bit more difficult to maintain and take care of, but man, it looks nice. And you'll notice there's not really any chrome on this vehicle. There's no chrome around the windows, or, well, there's a little bit of a strip along the bottom there, but it's pretty minor. So very, very little chrome used, very futuristic looking vehicle, and especially in this Shooting Star Matte color. Beautiful color. All right, coming around to the back, you can see, of course, all the pixels along the back here as well. So those light up in red, of course. There you can see those lights are coming on as I approach the vehicle, because, of course, this also has a power liftgate, and it's a smart power liftgate. But before I open it up, let's have a look at some of the other stuff along the back here. So you can see we've got the parking sensors along the back. You've got the reflectors here. Backup lights are in the area here, I think. Sorry, they're right there. Couldn't quite see them. All right, so there you can see the hatch is now opening up automatically. Now, don't mind all of the plastic on the inside of the vehicle. This vehicle is brand new, still has to get its detailing done and everything for the customer who's purchasing it. But yeah, so now that we're looking in the back, you can see there's actually quite a bit of storage space back here. With the back seats up, it's just over 27 cubic feet. And with the back seats down, it's about 59 cubic feet, or just over 1,600 liters of space. So there's a lot of space in the back of this vehicle, especially with those rear seats down. And the cool thing with those rear seats is that not only can they be folded down, but they'll also slide forward and backwards, which I will show you in a bit. Now, the Ultimate trim does come with the privacy cover, which just kind of locks in like that. And if you need to, you can actually move it back to this section here so that these seats can recline. Of course, the nice thing about the IONIQ 5 is that those seats actually recline in multiple positions. Having a look at the trunk floor itself, underneath the floor on this one is, of course, the subwoofer. So this one does have the wonderful Bose audio system with the big subwoofer back here. It sounds fantastic. You got access to the charge door right here. For whatever reason, the charge door doesn't want to open up. That's the manual release for it. And let's go ahead and pull this back a little bit here so that we can try out the back seat in a minute. That's pretty cool. So comes with a cargo net as well. This, of course, is all the mats that come with the vehicle. And, of course, your charging cable there. So it comes with a 120-volt charger in North America. So that'll do a full charge on this vehicle in about 2 to 3 days, actually. So it's a very, very big battery. You don't necessarily want to use that little charger if you're going to be driving more than about 30, 40, 50 kilometers a day. Having said that, if you are driving more than 50 kilometers a day, get yourself a level 2 16 amp charger. It's very unlikely that you need a 32 or higher amperage charger. So I always recommend going with 16 amp because it charges up the battery a little bit slower, which is a little bit better for the battery health. But on top of that, it's actually better for your house as well. You're not drawing so much power from your home's electrical system, which of course frees up that power for everything else. And a 16 amp charger will give this vehicle about 100 kilometers of range, roughly every 5 hours of charging. So that's more than enough for 99% of people out there, unless you're doing deliveries or something. Anyway, let's keep looking at this vehicle. All right, so to close the hatch, the button is right here, and this is also adjustable. So if you want it to stop at a different height, you can adjust it manually and hold this button down until it beeps twice, just like that, and now it'll always stop in that location. Also, another thing to note is it opens up pretty quickly, but there's actually an adjustment there. You can change how quickly it opens up. There's a fast and a slow. Pretty interesting. Now, this is, of course, is a 2022, and it still does not have a window wiper. The idea behind the aerodynamics here is that it's supposed to push the air off the rear window. Unfortunately, in reality, it doesn't work all that well. All right, before we go any further, I just want to show you the key fob. Check this out. So on the top of the key fob, you got the lock button there. You got the unlock right below it. Next to that, you have the charge door button, so that's how you can quickly open the charge door. You've got the hatch button to open up the hatch, of course, set off the car alarm with the hold button here. And you have these two buttons for the smart park, and then you've got the bottom button there, which is the remote start. So let's try out the remote start first here. So I'm gonna basically hold that bottom button down until it flashes. There we go. Now it's remote started, and now I can use the smart park system. So check this out. If I hold this button here, so there's nobody in the car right now, and I'm actually controlling the vehicle from the key fob. So that allows me to put this vehicle in a tight parking spot or pull it out of a tight parking spot by using this other button now. There we go. So I'm remote controlling this vehicle. How cool is that? Now it is quite intelligent. It uses the side sensors and the cameras and whatnot to make sure it goes around obstacles and stops in time if there's something in the way. So pretty neat. Now the other thing with the key fob that's pretty cool is when you approach the vehicle, if it's been locked for a while, when you approach, this normally would actually just unlock itself. Now, because I've just controlled the vehicle, it's not doing so. So I'm just gonna press this button here, and you'll notice there's the keyhole right there, if you're ever wondering where the keyhole is in case the proximity system doesn't work. But the cool thing I wanted to point out is when you get into the vehicle, it actually just kind of comes to life. It's now ready to drive. So you don't actually need to start the car again. It recognizes that the key is there and it comes to life. But before I talk about anything in here, let's look under the hood. So to pop the hood, it's just a little handle right here, and then we walk around to the front. And notice the hood actually wraps around the fender, which is kind of nice. There isn't a separate fender line there, and it goes all the way to the front of the vehicle as well, which is quite nice. But to open up the hood's pretty easy. Got the little latch right there, pretty much in the dead center, and then it has struts to hold the hood up, which is always appreciated. Underneath the hood, you have the front trunk, which is quite small, but it's great for the tire mobility kit as well as the charging cable. They fit in there quite nicely. And there's also room for like a first aid kit or something like that. So things that you don't necessarily need very often would live quite nicely over here. You have quick access to the accessory battery right there. Now, a lot of people who don't know EVs very well always wonder, well, you've got a giant battery in there, what's the point of having an accessory battery? Well, it's quite simple, actually. If you were to get into an accident, the main battery actually gets cut off immediately. As a matter of fact, I think it even uses a ballistic cutoff to cut off the main power supply, which of course is very, very high voltage. But you'll still need things like power windows, and the door locks have to work, and the automatic system to call emergency services, all of that needs to still function. So that's why it's got that second battery there. That is an advanced glass mat battery, and it takes control of all of the 12-volt functions in the vehicle, including the computer functions and such. On the left-hand side here, you can see we've got two different coolants. One's for the battery, one's for the electric motor. So separating those two coolants is quite nice, because if the electric motor is hot, you don't want to use hot coolant to try to cool the battery down and vice versa. So a really nice system there as well. Next to that, you have the windshield washer fluid. Now, I've also heard some people complain that the windshield washer fluid being right next to the coolant here is kind of dumb, but to be honest, I mean, it's pretty obvious that you shouldn't be going into those, and this one does say washer right on the top of it, so if somebody's mixing that up, yeah. Anyway, underneath the hood, you've got a insulation here, which you can see is buttoned up very nicely. Everything is just really well put together in the IONIQ 5. It's all very clean on here. There's no really sharp metals anywhere that you can cut yourself on. You can see a lot of that usage of structural adhesive. Now, Hyundai likes to use a lot of structural adhesive because it actually increases the welded strength of those sections by quite a bit. And you can see actually there's spot welds there. So not wherever, but in many places where metal is welded together, they also use structural adhesive to increase the strength of that joint. The other thing that's nice about the structural adhesive is that it allows you to use multiple types of materials together and not have to worry about things like galvanic rust response and such. Now, pretty much every company uses structural adhesive, but not to the same extent. Whereas most companies only use tens of feet, Hyundai uses hundreds of feet of structural adhesive. On top of that, we also use a lot of advanced high-strength steel. Of course, Hyundai being the only manufacturer of their own steel, they use well over 50% of advanced high-strength steel construction on all of the vehicles that they make. And this one's no different. Most companies only use about 30%. So Advanced high-strength steel, of course, leads to a much more solid chassis, better for handling, better for safety, better for creaks and squeaks in the future. It reduces those, of course. But yeah, really, really well put together vehicle. And of course, this is a top safety pick plus, so it's got the highest possible safety rating, and that's one of the reasons why it was World Car of the Year, as well as World EV of the Year, as well as World Best Design of the Year. So the IONIQ 5 holds the title for Best Vehicle of the Year so far, which is pretty cool. So I just closed the hood, and I noticed that the front vents are now open. You can actually hear the air being drawn. You can actually feel the air being drawn through there to cool down the system. Of course, it is quite hot right now. It's about 30 degrees Celsius, and it's quite warm out. So, all right, one last thing on the outside of the vehicle is, of course, the charging door. The most important part of an electric vehicle is being able to charge it, and that's right here. So you can see we've got more of those little pixels there. So if I press on that spot, now I can also use the key fob to open that up as well. So there's a button on the key fob, as I mentioned earlier. But in there, you've got the J1772 level 1, level 2 connector. And then if you want to use the fast charge system, it's a little bit difficult to pull off, but I found that the easiest way to do it is to just kind of pull right on the top edge there. But that gives you the DC fast charging. Now, right now, the IONIQ 5 is only one of a few vehicles that has an 800-volt charging architecture. That means that this vehicle can charge from 10 to 80% in roughly 18 minutes on a good day under ideal circumstances. That's extremely fast. It's about twice as fast as almost everything else out there, including Tesla vehicles. Now, on the right-hand side here, you can see we've got a little charge indicator. So I'm not sure if the camera's picking it up, but these 3 bars are lit up. That means that the vehicle is somewhere between 75% to 100% charged. The button right here is to close the door, and it actually is the same as this. So this is not a capacitive button. You just need to kind of push on that spot, and what it does is it just pushes this little nub into that button. So that button actually is the open and close button. But yeah, let's have a look at the back seat first, and then we'll have a look at the front. So back seat space in this vehicle is quite good. I'm going to go ahead and put the front seat where I would normally drive it though. All right, so just so you can see, I'm not making this up. I've now got the seat precisely where I would put it to drive it. You can see my legs are quite comfortable where they are. I've got great support underneath the front seat. And now I'm going to go around to the back seat and show you how much space there is even behind me, which I'm 6'2", so I'm not very short. Now there are taller people than me out there, of course, but you'll still see how much room we got. So look at this. I got about 3 inches in front of my knees, and even with the beautiful panoramic sunroof, I've still got about 2 inches above my head. And that's with the seat in its current position. But check this out. I can actually recline the seat. Now, it'll go a little bit further if that privacy cover wasn't in the way. But it's got many different locations that I can actually put that seat. I can put it straight up, right there, if I'm wanting to use it as a barrier for stuff in the back. Or I can recline it a little bit if I'm one of those people that sits up ungodly straight. But yeah, lots of room back here. Now, I've also got a center cup holder armrest, and it is quite cushy. And the nice thing about it is it doesn't flop down on the seat bench. It actually has a position here where it stays and it doesn't flop down, which is kind of nice. You can see we've also got heated seats back here. So 2 levels of seat heat. And in the window, I've got a sunshade, retractable sunshade. So nice feature there. Okay sized bottle holder. It's kind of small, but it'll fit water bottles and whatnot. Got the little IONIQ 5 logo on the door there, which is kind of nice. Nice touch. And also, I can move the seat forward and backwards. So that's great if I have stuff that's in the back, but I still want to have people in the back seats. We've got 2 USB-A ports right here, and a little bit of storage there as well. Now, USB-A ports are compatible with all sorts of older devices with older cables. So I personally don't have a problem with USB-A. And if you really need to have USB-C, well, it's a pretty easy adapter to put in there. But yeah, a lot of people complain about that. I don't see the issue. It's just for charging, so who cares? We got a nice flat floor, of course. My feet can stick underneath the seat, even though I do have the front seat all the way down. And of course, it is all the way flat along the bottom here. And this whole console can move. I'll show you that in a bit. It can move forward if I want to give the backseat passengers a little bit extra space. Now check this out. This beautiful panoramic roof goes all the way over me. It starts in the front, goes all the way to the back. One of the big benefits of this panoramic roof, though, in comparison with other companies, is it does have a sunshade, and it blocks out 100% of the sun. Another thing to note back here is that both seat backs are solid. They both have nets as well, cargo nets, and you can see we've got vents on the side here as well. Now, I like this placement a lot. I think it's better than having it in the center console because it's really directed towards the people that are sitting back here. But the other thing is, obviously, you wouldn't be able to put a vent on here because this whole thing can slide back and forwards. Now, the only other thing to point out with the back seat here is that every single passenger has a handle. Even the driver has a handle, actually, a grab handle. And there's lights back here, and they're even LEDs. So everything is accounted for, every little detail thought of. Just a really nice place to be back here. Very, very comfortable seats, actually. They're quite solid, but the nice thing about the foam that's used in these seats is that once your body starts to heat up the foam, it gets a little bit softer. So it's got great support. It's a soy-based foam, very eco-friendly. Yeah, comfortable place to be. Even the armrests are soft. And check this out. No matter how tall you are, you can grab the door handle because the door handle goes from the front of the door all the way to the back of the door. So it's a very, very easy to grab handle. It's kind of funny. Some people jump in this vehicle and they're looking for the handle and they can't see it because it's actually kind of, it's the same color here and here. Also, by the way, guys, this has the ambient lighting system as well, so there will be ambient light in the doors as well as the front. Unfortunately, I can't really show that off because it's quite bright out today. So, all right, let's check out the front seat. So, first front seat is the passenger front seat. I want to show this real quick. It is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-way adjustable passenger seat. Now, unfortunately, in Canada, we don't get the little footrest thing on the passenger side, but it is still a 10-way adjustable power seat, and of course, the headrest goes up and down, so technically it's a 12-way. But a huge shout out to Hyundai for putting lumbar support finally on a passenger side. All right, so now for the driver's seat. Check this out. So we have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then this is actually for the relaxation system. So basically what it's going to do now is it's going to automatically move the seat back to a position that's a bit more comfortable. So that would be for if you're, there we go, if you're charging. You can see it's actually extending that seat out. Now the reason it takes a couple presses like that is because it wants you to make sure that there's nothing in the back seat. So it actually comes up on the screen saying check back seats for space. And then and only then will it actually do that. So you do have to hit it a couple of times. I found that kind of interesting. And then the front of that button basically puts it all the way back to where you had it. So that's how that works. And of course you can adjust that manually using the button in the front there. Now this vehicle does also have memory seating and mirrors. So that's the buttons for that there. So 2 positions for different drivers. Look at the beautiful driver's door here. So again, nice cushiony armrest. We have the button for the child safety lock system. Now that's not just for the windows, it's also for the door. And this vehicle also has safe exit assist. So if you've parallel parked and there's a car about to come from behind pass by, it'll actually keep the rear doors locked before that, before they can be swung open and cause a collision. So it'll wait for the car to go by before it allows you to open up the rear door. Pretty smart technology, and I think Hyundai was actually the first company to do that, so pretty neat. Looking further at the door, you can see we've got more of those pixels there. I'm not going to talk too much about the pixels, guys. Every other reviewer has talked about it to death, but yeah, there's lots of pixels on this vehicle. You got the Bose audio system there, is the Bose information, and of course it has the center channel up front there as well. So subwoofer in the back, 2 speakers in each of the doors. Well, 1 speaker in the rear doors, 2 speakers in the front doors, and then the center channel. So really, really good audio. On the left of the dashboard here, you can see we got the dimmer switch, the auto hold button, and the power e-brake, which is automatic as well. Auto hold just stops the vehicle from moving when you take your foot off the brake. And then you've got the traction stability control there. So if you want to do donuts in the snow, that's what you need to turn off. And then you got the button here to open up the rear door. Now, this little pad here is literally just a metal pad. It doesn't really do anything. It's just a place to stick magnets, in case you're wondering what that is. All right, so now sitting in the driver's seat, I can tell you the amount of space in here is also quite spectacular. I have a friend who's 6'7", and he doesn't think he's going to fit. But I mean, I'm 6'2", and look how much space I got above my head. It's just insane. And of course I can pull the steering wheel in and out as well, so I can get it right where I need it. It's tilt and telescopic. And the seat, of course, has height adjustment. So if I adjust this all the way up, let's see how far it goes. The adjustment ability on this seat is insane. Like, it just, there we go. Like, I'm way higher now than I was before. So very, very good amount of space in the front, and the legroom is phenomenal. Right now I'm too far from the pedals. I would need to move my seat forward. I can reach them, but just barely. All right. Let's check out some of the other stuff in here now. As far as the center console goes, as I mentioned before, it does move. So there's a handle right in the front here that I can grab, and I can move the whole thing forwards and backwards. Now, if you're wondering what that's for, again, it gives the passengers in the back a little bit of extra space. But as the driver, if I'm sitting back here, I'm going to want to have this back a bit as well. Now, the center armrest itself does lift in case you do have stuff down here that you're trying to access. But there's also a little cubby underneath there as well. And then also in the center console, you can see we've got 2 more USB-A ports. So right there and there, those are again for charging. Now, all of these USB-A ports are higher wattage, so they're going to do a good job charging even tablets. You can see we've got the Qi Wireless logo there. That's because this is a ventilated Qi Wireless charging pad for a cell phone. You also have, further up here, another USB port. So that is for your Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. So if you're going to be using that to get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto up here, you can actually just put your phone in there. It's actually a really deep cubby. There's lots of space in there. And then a 12-volt power outlet for old school stuff. All right, one other thing I forgot to mention is that underneath the rear seat, you can see here we have a 120-volt power outlet. Of course, this vehicle is compatible with vehicle to load. So I can slide this over, and there we go. We have a 120-volt power outlet. And notice it's actually lit up at night, which is kind of cool. And there's a lock right here. So if you don't want it to be used, you can actually lock that. You can lock that little door so that it can't be opened. Now, this vehicle also is able to use vehicle to load on the outside using an adapter. That's a vehicle to load adapter. So if you want more information about that, check it out on Hyundai Canada's website or Hyundai USA's website. But yeah, you can actually run, I think it's up to 3,000 watts or something like that from that vehicle to load adapter, if memory serves. So that's a lot of power. Pretty cool. And the nice thing is you can actually set it up so that the battery doesn't discharge past a certain percentage when you're using it. So pretty neat. So if you want to do some really cool tailgating, use a blender or whatever, you can do that right from your vehicle. All right, having a look at the glove box. Now, it is a very large, very deep glove box. Unfortunately, we don't get the drawer like they do down over in Europe there, but you can see just how much space is in there. It's huge. Comparatively speaking, look at how large this is, and it just slides in there with room to spare. So it's a very, very large glove compartment, which is kind of nice. We're going to get back to this screen eventually, but first I want to talk about the climate control. Now, this is, of course, dual zone climate control, and you can see we've got the climate button and the warmer button. So if you're looking for the ventilated seats, I know it sounds weird, but you actually go to the warmer screen, and that brings up this screen up here, and then you can actually turn on the ventilated seats, which I'm going to do because I am hot. You've also got a heated steering wheel button right there as well, and then, of course, heated seats, multiple different levels for the front seats. And of course, you have all of the options for changing your climate control from this screen as well. You can simply press the different buttons in here. So unlike some of our vehicles, you can actually control the climate from this screen rather than having to use that screen. But having said that, the fact that there's 3 levels of automatic, which is a really nice feature, so you can actually have it on different aggressivenesses. It's varying degrees of aggressiveness for the automatic climate control system. And you can also synchronize the two, just like pretty much any other climate control, or you can have the passenger having an independent temperature. So really cool there. Now you can also set it up so that, and I believe it is currently set up to do this, when you use the Recirculate, when you use the windshield washer fluid, it actually recirculates the air so you don't have to smell the washer fluid. Nice smart add-on there. Also, when you put the vehicle into eco mode, it'll actually use less power here as well. So the climate control system uses sort of an eco mode climate control system. All right, let's move over to the steering wheel. So on the steering wheel, you've got all of your controls for your audio system, of course. They look like capacitive controls, but they're not. They are actually physical buttons. So you can actually press them down, they move, and they work quite well. So they are sort of capacitive in that when you put your finger on it, and then let's say you were to push over here, it would still recognize the spot. Yeah, car's going nuts. It would still recognize the spot that your finger is. So sort of capacitive, but not really. You get your volume control. Mode just switches between where music comes from. This goes to next preset, previous preset, or next song, previous song. The star is customizable, so you can choose what you want that to do. But basically, I always set it up to hang up calls. On the right-hand side of the steering wheel, you've got these two buttons here, which kind of go through the center screen, which we'll go over with you in a minute. And then you've got the lane follow, lane centering button here. So that's for low-speed lane centering. You do, of course, have high-speed lane centering as part of the lane keep assist and lane departure warning system. So that's on by default unless you disable it in the system. There used to be, on our other vehicles, a button on the left-hand side of the dashboard down here that you can enable and disable that, but on these newer ones, they've just kind of put it into the settings. Now, also it has adaptive cruise control, so you can see the button for that right there. That'll adjust the distance that this vehicle follows the car in front of it. You can then adjust the speed right here, and then set the speed with that top button. On the back of the steering wheel, of course, you have the paddles. Now, these paddles are to adjust regenerative braking. So if I put the vehicle into drive, you can see there on the bottom left-hand corner, I'll zoom in a little bit for you there. So right now we're in level 1. If I pull the left paddle, there's level 2, level 3, and then there's iPedal. Now, iPedal is pretty cool. What iPedal does is it basically puts the car into a mode whereby when you take your foot off the accelerator, it just comes to a nice gradual complete stop. And then when you want to go again, you just push on the accelerator. So the idea is you only need to really hit one pedal. If you need to brake in a hurry, that's different. Obviously, you still need to use the brake pedal. But just coming down to a gradual stop at a stop sign or stoplight, or if there's a car in front of you, whatever, let off the accelerator, the car will automatically slow down using regenerative braking. Now, IONIQ 5 is pretty cool in that even if it uses regenerative braking all the time, like if you've got it on level 3 or iPedal or whatever, and you're always using regenerative braking, it'll still, from time to time, use the friction brakes in order to keep them nice and clean. So you don't have to worry about the friction brakes needing servicing, after 6 months because they've gotten all rusty. So it's actually pretty intelligent. They've made it in such a way that it cleans that rust off periodically as well. Now, of course, the paddle on the right-hand side reduces the level of regenerative braking. So as you can see there, we're now in level 2, level 1, etc. And I'm just going to go ahead and put it back into park now by pressing the end of the stock here. There we go. All right, the other button on the steering wheel, of course, is the drive mode button. So that allows you to put the vehicle into, as you can see, Eco, Sport, and Normal. Now you can also hold the button down to put it into snow mode. So snow mode is essentially going to increase the traction control aggressiveness a little bit, but it's also going to reduce your startup power, and it's going to reduce the regeneration to level 1, because the last thing you want is for regenerative level to be on a high, because when you take your foot off the accelerator, it would start to brake quickly, which could be dangerous in the snow. So it reduces it to level 1. Also on the steering wheel stock, console rather, you have the shifter. Now this is kind of cool. So basically you just rotate the end to put it into drive, you rotate it backwards to put it into reverse, and you press the end of it to put it into park. Sorry, it's focusing on the wrong thing there. This doesn't go up or down, it's just stationary, you just rotate the end of it. Now the cool thing with this system is that if you're in drive and you take your seatbelt off and you open up the door, it actually quickly puts it into park for you. If you shut the car off, it'll also put it into park for you, so you don't have to worry about forgetting to put it into park. The other nice thing is that if the e-brake is turned on, the emergency brake is on, when you put the car into drive or reverse, it quickly turns it off for you. If you're on a hill, it puts it back on for you as soon as you put the vehicle into park. So it's actually pretty intelligent how it uses the e-brake as well as the transmission shifting. One thing I forgot to point out was notice that the screen actually changes when you put it into the different modes. So there's Eco, there's Normal, and there's Sport. So Sport, of course, has that red glow around the sides there. And both screens can be put into a night mode automatically or manually, just kind of darkens everything. I'll show you that a little bit later on as well. So before I talk about those screens though, let's look at the rear view mirror. So it is an auto dimming rear view mirror. It does have the home link buttons for garage doors and gates. So in the future, this will likely be a camera system because of that rear view window wiper missing. But for now, it is just a auto-dimming mirror. On the headliner here, you can see we've got the buttons for the BlueLink system, so the SOS emergency button and the call for roadside assistance. Of course, this vehicle does come with 3 years of free BlueLink, which allows you to remotely start the car from your cell phone, unlock the doors, lock the doors, see what the charging state is, stop and start the charging system, find it on a Google map, that sort of thing. That's all free for 3 years. It also calls emergency services automatically if you get into an accident. All right, also up here, you've got your lighting control. Love this when you enable and disable the interior lights. Check it out. It's got this band of LED light, which is kind of cool. I've never really seen anything like that before, so that's kind of neat. You also have individual lights. Sorry, that's up here, and that's a touch-sensitive button. That's kind of neat. This one here just turns the lights on when you open the doors. This turns all the lights on all the time. And then, of course, you have the button for the sunshade right there. So love how it closes and opens like that. It separates in the middle. Also, up here you have sliding sun visors, which both have mirrors and they both have lights. Still an incandescent light there, though. Come on, Hyundai. Where's the LED for that? All right, the next thing I want to talk about is the head-up display. Now, that's going to be tough to videotape because it's quite small on camera, but there we go. That's what it looks like right now. Now, if I put on the augmented reality system so you can see sort of basically what it's going to do is it's going to hover that over the road as you need to make a right turn. And that's what's going on there, or a left turn or whatever. But just to give you an idea of what it actually does. Now I can, of course, adjust all of this. I can move it around if I want it higher, I want it lower. I can change the content that it displays up there. So pretty cool. There's a lot of things that you can actually adjust. You can also put it into sort of a standard mode. You can disable it altogether just like that. Now all of that adjusting can be done from the head-up display settings in the settings menu, which I'll get to a little bit later. So before I talk about the big one there, the radio, we're going to talk about the instrument cluster. So the instrument cluster is somewhat customizable. Now the buttons on the steering wheel right here, this one and this one, kind of control everything in the center of this screen. But of course you can also change some of the settings for the instrument cluster in here. But I'll show you what these two buttons do first. So starting on the far left side of the screen here, you can see we've got multiple menus. And to access those menus, that's this button here that'll kind of swirl to the right and then bounce back over to the left. And then in this particular menu, there are two separate screens. So right now we're looking at the sort of lane follow assist screen and adaptive cruise control screen. That'll kind of come up in there as well. But then one below that is the attention level system. So that will tell us whether the car thinks we're getting tired behind the wheel, and it'll do that based on the steering input. So if it's having to correct the steering a lot, it'll start to think that you're tired, especially if you've been driving for a long time. Now, if I press that top button once, that bounces us over to the next screen. And here we have our drive info. So this is like a trip computer, but since the last time we started the vehicle. Now, if I drop, you can see I've been making this video for 46 minutes. If I drop the screen down one, and that's using the little rocker switch directly underneath that, you can see we've got our accumulated info since the last recharge, and I can reset that if I hold the OK button down. And then I get a trip B here is like another accumulated info. I can reset that one as well. And then it just bounces back up to the top. So that's the OK button is this rocker switch as well. So if I bounce over to the next screen, I have our compass, sorry. But this will also be our turn-by-turn directions if we're using the built-in navigation system. Hit it over one more time. We can see our all-wheel drive system. And what's cool about the all-wheel drive in this vehicle is it doesn't actually wait for the front or the rear wheels to slip. It just kind of puts power to all the wheels right away under any acceleration. You can see there, I just moved a tiny bit and all the wheels lit up. So it's actually mitigating any sort of potential for slipping by putting power to all four wheels right away. Guys, don't mind the little weird kind of lines that you can see on the screen there. It's just because the refresh rate of the screen and the camera's refresh are a little bit different. So it's perfectly normal. It doesn't actually do that in real life. And then also in this one, if I go down one, is the tire pressure monitor. And of course, if I press that top button again, it takes me back to this screen. You'll also see some customization of this screen is that I have the speed limit up in the top left-hand corner here. So that's something you can enable and disable. And then on the bottom left, we have our percentage, 51% now. We've got the current level of regen that we're in, the current drive mode that we're in, the outdoor temperature, how much torque is being applied to the accelerator, and then our overall odometer. And then we've got the range till empty right here, so 174 kilometers. This, of course, will adjust based on how the vehicle is driving. These have an average range of 430 kilometers. And then the power level. So as you're accelerating, you're going to see lines kind of go up in there into the power zone. And then when you're decelerating and it's charging, it'll kind of come down here to show you that you're regenerating. On the left-hand side here is your speedometer, and of course that'll actually build up as you speed up as well. And then we have the indicator for the lane keep assist, as well as the lane follow assist at lower speeds. And then our headlights are currently on. Now, in regard to the headlight, by the way, these are automatic headlights, but I always put it into the on section here. And you do have automatic high beams. That only works if the headlights are in auto as well. Just keep that in mind. And then, of course, if we press the drive mode, things change a little bit here. So in eco mode, it doesn't look as sporty, but all of the information is basically the same. Now, if we jump over to this screen and we go into setup and then into, I think it's under display here, yeah. And then I go into the, so there's the auto brightness adjust, and I can turn up the brightness. We can also turn on a blue light filter, so that actually works on both screens as well. But yeah, so there's a couple of settings there. But then if I go into, I think it's under screen theme layout, here we go. So I can actually put everything into the dark screen. I can also have that scheduled to do that at a specific time of day. So I generally will put that at about 7:30. And the reason for that is because that's sort of the average time that it starts to get dark in Canada, at least where we are. And then I'll just have that ending at 8 a.m. in the morning. So now, no matter what time of the year it is, as it's getting dark or it's gotten dark, this will actually switch to dark theme. Now, the cluster theme, you can actually link to the drive mode, or you can actually choose which cluster you want. So that's the other little bit of customization you have there. I like to leave it linked to the drive mode. And also, while we're in here, the screensaver, that's for this particular screen. So if I were to shut the screen off by holding the power button down, you can see we have a nice pixelated digital clock. So that's a little bit of an Easter egg there, guys. If you're looking for more pixels in the IONIQ 5, if you enable the digital screensaver, you get a pixelated clock. The analog screensaver, of course, looks a little bit different. Let's have a look. It's not pixelated, it's just an analog clock. Also, the split screen setting in here, that's for this screen as well. So I can have these different things come up on the side when I'm looking at a split screen, which I'll go over in a moment. But now that we've actually finished up with this screen, we can talk about this. This is the last thing to talk about, and probably the largest portion of this video. All right, so I will try my best to hold the camera as still as possible for the rest of this video, guys. It's just the way that I'm sitting here, it can be a little bit difficult to do so I apologize if I'm a little bouncy. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off at the home screen. So I'm going to press this button here. Now, the reason I call it the home screen is because you'll notice along the bottom we got three little lines here that indicate that we have basically three home screens, but this is the one that it always returns to completely when you hit the home button more than once. So here we are on the home screen. We've got the clock on the left side here, the current music that's playing on the bottom left, our current battery percentage, our range until empty, and then a kind of a preview of the map. Now, if we were navigating, we would see turn by turn, we'd see a little bit of map information there, navigation information there as well. So there's not a whole lot of info on this particular screen. I will say there's a lot more info here than some of the other Hyundai models, in that you do at least see the battery percentage and the range till empty. Now, when you press it, as you can see, it opens up the EV screen, which I'm going to get to a little bit later. If you press on the clock portion here, it takes you into the general settings. If you press on the map section, it takes you into the map. So it's not a completely useless screen. There you go, I hit the home button twice, now it takes me back in here. But as you can see, yeah, so it's not completely useless. Like, it actually has function. You can actually press the different locations on the screen to get to their corresponding things, okay? So if I swipe over to the left once, we have a bunch of icons, and then a bunch more if we swipe over one more time. So let's go through these one at a time. All right, on the top left-hand corner, first of all, is the user settings. So basically, I'm in the buyer's settings here, and I can actually change things like not the background, so the avatar image. I can link it to a Blue Link account. Oop, getting a little blurry there. I can delete the profile, change the profile name, that sort of thing. I can also change users. There's multiple profiles you can set up in here, as well as a guest profile. So that's what that is. Home just takes you back to that screen, as I mentioned before. The menu button here allows you to shut the screen off right off the bat, edit the home icons, so you can actually move stuff around, go to a quick manual, gives you a QR code you can scan. But let's go into the individual apps here. So the EV screen. So starting here gives us a little bit of a graphic as to how far we can go, where the nearest charging stations are, if they're relatively close. So right now there's one at the Merton GM store about 0.7 kilometer away. Shows our battery percentage. If I tap that, it brings me into more energy information, which I will go through in just a moment. I don't believe anything changes if you tap here. No, that's all the same. And it actually shows you how far you can go with or without the climate control system turned on. That's quite interesting. I think that's too big of a discrepancy. I don't think there's really going to be that much of a difference, because once your climate control hits the temperature that you've set it to, it starts to reduce how much power consumption there is. So I think this is just because the vehicle's brand new. It hasn't figured it out yet. Now, we can also change the next departure system. So this is where you can actually set up sort of pre-warming cycle. So it pre-warms or pre-cools the interior, and it pre-warms or pre-cools the battery to be prepped for that departure, which is pretty cool. So you can do that for 2 different times. So morning and afternoon, for instance. So that's really nice. So you don't necessarily have to use the remote start. You can set it up to just automatically be cool or warm for you in the morning. And the nice thing is it's going to use grid power to do that, so you can save some range loss in the winter. You also have scheduled charging and scheduled climate, which is part of that next departure thing. That the scheduled charging is only necessary if you have, if you live in an area where peak rates apply at different times of the day. In British Columbia here, our peak rates only occur after you've used a certain amount of kilowatts. So for us here in BC, it's not really necessary. And then here's our EV charge transfer vehicle to load settings. So we can actually set this up to stop providing power to the vehicle to load system, so that 120 outlet in the back or the V2L adapter that you could purchase. You can have it stop providing power to that when the main battery hits a certain percentage. Now, the battery in this vehicle is 77.4 kilowatts, so I mean that's a whole lot of power. You could run an entire house for like 2 days, probably longer, 2 or 3 days on the battery that's in this vehicle. But of course, the vehicle to load power adapter doesn't give you that much energy, so it's good for, you know, a refrigerator, for instance. All right. Also in here is settings. Now, settings takes you directly into the charge settings, which I'm going to cover in a moment. But first, I want to go over this stuff here. So I'm going to go back into this energy information screen. So this is how much time it's going to take to get the vehicle charged back up to 100% in the various different charging means. Now, they're going to be off quite a bit. Like, look, you can see it says 35 minutes with an 800 volt system and 35 minutes for a 400 volt system. Obviously, that's not entirely accurate. Again, this car hasn't learned anything yet. But it also says that if the battery was at 100%, you'd be getting roughly 487 kilometers. But again, that is an estimate. And you can actually adjust these. So if I adjust this down to 80%, now it should actually tell me, see, it says 11 minutes to 80% on the different chargers. But again, that's not accurate because 800 volts should still go faster than 400 volts. So you can adjust this so that you can see roughly how long you're going to be at a charging station. So that's pretty cool. So it's kind of an instant bit of information. Now, also, it says climate control on 181 kilometers of range, off 236. Again, it's an estimate right now. Under electricity use, it shows that we're currently using half a kilowatt for the climate control. The drivetrain is using basically nothing because we're not moving. Battery care, it hasn't used any power yet, so that's pre-warming, that sort of thing. And the electronics are also using half a kilowatt. So a full kilowatt of energy is being used for the climate control and the electronics. So if this battery was fully charged, we could basically sit here for 77 hours running the climate control and the electronics, because it's 1 kilowatt and there's 77 kilowatt hours in the battery. So 77 times 1. So yeah, pretty neat. So lots of power on this vehicle to use in case you wanted to go camping or whatever. You could put the vehicle into utility mode and just use the electronics and the climate control. Under EV economy history, this is just how the vehicle was driven the last few times that it was driven. Now, obviously, this vehicle hasn't really driven very far, very much. So all of this information is kind of irrelevant still. Okay, so that's that screen there. Now let's go into the settings here. Now the EV settings is going to be the same as this EV settings in the setup screen. So we're going to go to the setup screen a little bit later anyway, so we're going to leave that out for now. We've also got this button up here, which brings us to the map to show us sort of a visual of how far we can get on the current state of charge. So that's kind of neat. And you can move this around. And you can go into your nav settings and you can set as destination here. So if you want to get to like the farthest extent of where the car can go, and now you can hit, you choose that location. If it is a location, there we go. So now you can actually hit set as destination. You can save it. You can, whatever. There's a bunch of stuff you can do from there that, quite frankly, isn't really all that helpful. So this button is interesting, but I don't think you'll ever really use it, to be honest. So map takes us to the map screen, and you can see it's a three-dimensional map. This is capable of displaying 3D buildings in certain areas. So in major metropolitan areas, you'd actually see the buildings represented in 3D, which is pretty cool. And you can also split screen the map as well as the stereo and a bunch of other stuff. And that's how you do it. There is a little button there to do that, but we won't bother with that right now. Let's go back to home screen. Navigation menu takes you into the screen where you can actually search for addresses, points of interest. You can also go to saved places, nearest Hyundai dealerships, look at traffic information, that sort of thing. Phone, of course, just takes you to the phone screen, nothing too special. Phone projection, of course, is your Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is just wired in this vehicle. Voice memo allows you to record your voice and play it back at a later date. Climate takes you to this climate screen, so that's the same as hitting the climate button right there. And then if you want to switch to the warmer screen, you can just press that right there. It takes you to the warmer screen. And again, I've got the ventilated seat on, as you can see. Rear warmer allows you to enable and disable the rear seat heat right from here. So if your kids are playing with it, you can actually adjust it from here as well. And then it's just, again, that was just the warmer ventilation screen. The if you hold it, it takes you into the customizable section where you can change the home screen. Valet mode is for dropping your vehicle off with a valet. It allows you to put the vehicle into a restricted mode. Only works when you have BlueLink enabled. Quiet mode will actually shut off all of the speakers in the back, and it'll prevent the front speakers from being over level 25. So that's kind of nice if you got kids sleeping in the back. HD radio data shows you traffic information. It shows you Doppler radar in case you want to see what the weather's going to look like. So that's all pulling information from HD radio. Setup is the setup screen, which we're going to go to in a moment. I'm going to swipe over to the left here. You can see this takes us into our radio screen. So while we're looking at the radio real quick, just want to show you it has that beautiful test tube design like other Hyundais. All of your presets are along the bottom here, so whether they're AM, FM, or Sirius XM satellite presets, they'll all be there, which is kind of cool. There's our HD radio, which gives you a clear signal and also radio information. And then media just takes you to media playback from your Bluetooth device or USB device or the sounds of nature, that sort of thing. BlueLink, of course, is BlueLink. Notifications is BlueLink notifications. And user manual just shows you a QR code that you can scan for a digital user manual. Okay, let's go into the setup screen. All right, so in the setup screen on the top left, you have the vehicle settings. So first off, your driver settings. So smart cruise control, you can adjust this based on the driving mode that you're in or how your driving style is. So basically, how close you want the vehicle to follow the vehicle in front of you, that sort of thing, how aggressive it is, that sort of thing as well. Driving style settings, you can actually have it get closer to the vehicle in front of you. You can have the acceleration on quick and the reaction speed on quick as well. So the reason I set it up like that is I find that even at the near distance, the vehicle follows far enough away that it's more than safe enough. And if you're too far away, you're just going to have people passing on the right all the time anyway. So that's why I like to set it up like that. Driving convenience, you have Highway Drive Assist 2.0 in this vehicle. So the vehicle is capable of really maintaining its position in the line and keeping a distance from the car in front of you. And the lane change assist, so when you put the turn signal on, if you have the highway drive assist on, if you're using the cruise control and you hit the left turn signal, it's actually going to change lanes for you when it's safe to do so automatically. It's pretty cool. Auto speed change, so if it's noticing that there's a sharp turn up ahead, it'll actually slow down automatically as well. Pretty neat. Speed limit system, so you can actually maximize or minimize the difference between what the speed limit is and what the cruise control is going to do for you. You can also have the speed limit assist on so that it adjusts the vehicle speed based on the speed limit. And then you've also got a speed limit warning that'll come on when you drive over the speed limit, or you can just turn that whole thing right off, which is what we're going to do for now. Warning timing, no big deal, standard or late. Warning volume. So when you've got when the backup camera is on, it's going to lower the music volume down so you can actually hear the backup sensors and such. And you can also adjust the volume level of the sensors warning as well. Driver attention warning system. So not only do you have the inattentive driver warning that I talked about earlier, but also leading vehicle departure alert. So if you're at a stoplight and the car in front of you starts to go, this will actually remind you that it is now safe to drive. The forward safety assist, so you've got forward cross safety. So it provides warning and emergency braking when a risk or forward cross traffic collision is detected. So not only will it detect cars just stopping in front of you, but also crossing over the road in front of you as well. And it's going to apply braking power to avoid a collision. Of course, like every other feature in a Hyundai, you can turn all of that stuff off. Lane safety, you've got lane safety assist. So if you start to drift out of your lane when there's a car in your blind spot, it'll use the brakes to yank you back into your, sorry, that's the blind spot safety assist. It'll use your brakes to kind of yank you back into your lane to prevent a side collision. You've also got the safe exit assist, which I talked about earlier, and of course blind spot monitoring with blind view monitor. Check this out. If I put the turn signal on, I get a view on my instrument cluster of the left side of the vehicle or the right side of the vehicle when I've got the right signal on. Pretty nice technology there. So not only do we have blind spot monitoring, we've got blind spot view in this vehicle using the 360 camera system. Parking safety rear active assist. So when you're backing out of a parking space, if you have something behind you, it'll actually apply the brake to avoid a collision in reverse as well. And of course, you've got the surround view monitor, which I'll now show you. So I'm going to put the vehicle into reverse. There we go. So we've got the top-down view, and you'll notice there's no weird, ugly stitch lines. It's actually done a really nice job of kind of stitching everything together. And you do have dynamic steering lines that show the swing of the front of the vehicle. That's not that common. I don't think you'll see that in pretty much any other manufacturer's vehicles. Look at the quality of this backup camera as well, guys. Beautiful backup camera quality. And check this out. New for Hyundai is the 360 surround view animated view, which you can move around. Check this out. How cool is that? Unfortunately, it's the wrong color. If we go into the settings, though, we can adjust the top view parking lines, rear view parking lines, and parking distance warning. So there are some adjustable things in here you can change. For instance, you can get a top-down view. You can get the side-by-side view here if you're parallel parking. But man, how cool is that? That is so cool. All right, so next thing is the drive mode. Now, there's two different types of brake modes in this vehicle. You got normal and sport. So if you are driving dynamically and you want to get access to a little bit more friction brake, you can actually put it into sport, but of course that does reduce your overall range. So we like to keep that in normal. You've also got the climate control eco mode. So when the vehicle is in eco, it'll keep the climate control in eco as well, but in this one with the check mark on, it'll always be in eco mode. That again helps for range. The head-up display, this is where you can change some of the settings there, which we already went over, so we're going to leave that for now. Go to cluster. You can change the cluster theme as I showed you earlier. This is where we can also set up the service interval. We can reset the fuel economy or energy economy after recharging, or just whenever we want to manually. So we're going to do that. Let's see, we can also change the content on the screen. So you got your wiper lights display, blind spot view, and icy road warning. We're going to leave all that on, and we're going to leave the welcome sound on as well. Under climate, here's our automatic recirculate on washer fluid use. And check this out. So when you're going through a tunnel, it blocks outside air coming in, so you don't have to smell the weird smells of a tunnel. Insane. Automatic dehumidify and smart ventilation. So automatic ventilation when it detects that the vehicle is getting a little bit, musty inside. We've got auto defrost and auto defog. And then, of course, we've got climate control eco mode as well, which we were just looking at in a different spot. Under seat, you can have a seat position change alert. So if somebody adjusts your seat when you get in, it'll tell you. The seat easy access actually slides the seat back to make it easier to get in and out of the car. When you shut the car off, turn the car on, you can have that extended or off as well. Under lights, you can see we've got the ambient light settings. So on the speaker right now, you can see we've got that blue ambient light there. I'm going to change the color real quick. We're going to make it green. There's jade green, orchard green, there's yellow there. We're going to leave it on that one for now. And the nice thing about this is you can actually put a custom color in as well. So if you go in, you can change that to whatever color you prefer, which is kind of nice. I'll put it back on blue actually for the customer. We can also have that dim in the dark, and we can also link it to the drive mode. So when you put it in sport mode, everything goes red and exciting. But you can see here, there's multiple different places where that lighting comes out. It's kind of hard to show in the daytime, though, which is why I'm just showing you the speaker. All right, and also in here we have our one-touch turn signal, which I've got set to 5 flashes. Welcome mirror, basically, when you unlock the doors or approach the vehicle, the mirrors open up, so you know that it's unlocked and ready to go for you. Headlight delay just keeps the lights on when you shut the car off, just for a few minutes. High beam assist, basically that just turns the high beams off when it detects a car coming towards you. All right, and then we got door. So under door, we've got the auto lock, auto unlock, approach unlock, which is what I just talked about. It'll unlock the doors for you automatically. 2-press unlock if you use the key fob. You want to unlock just the driver's door or all the doors. And then the power lift gate, which you can adjust the speed of, the height of as well. I'm going to put that on full open, so I don't have to go back and change that now. And then we've also got remote window control, so that's pretty cool. So I actually use the key fob to enable or to open the windows. I think you just hold down the unlock button to do that. And then under convenience, we got the rear occupant alert system. So if the rear door is open at any time when the vehicle is on, when you shut the vehicle off, it reminds you to check your rear seat. And then the wireless charging system, that's for that wireless charger down there in the console. All right, and that was everything in the vehicle settings. Let's go to EV settings real quick. So we have our max charge amount. Now, I am a big proponent of charging to 100% all the time. I don't think it's an issue. If we lived in a very, very hot climate, I might adjust that down to 90%. The reality is we don't, so I'm going to leave that at 100. On charging current, we can actually reduce the charging current, and that way, if you are plugged into an AC outlet that isn't all that great and you keep blowing breakers, you can reduce the charging current. That's what that is. Battery conditioning mode, of course, we do want automatic battery condition in winter at lower temperatures to maintain our driving performance and shorten DC charging time. Now, currently the 2022 IONIQ 5 does not have preconditioning when you're navigating to a DC fast charging station. However, that will change. There will be an update for that eventually corrects that. Utility mode allows us to put the vehicle into a mode whereby all of the low voltage electronics are still available, and the 12-volt battery is actually charged by the high voltage battery. So that's great for camping in your vehicle. So that's what that is. So basically, if I wanted to do it now, I would just hit the start button, I think, to start that here. So uses so that's currently off. If I press it, that turns it on. There we go. So now the car is off, and if I wanted to turn the utility mode off now, I would just basically start the car again. So I'm going to leave it on utility mode for now while I'm doing this. Smart regen mode, so you can actually have it linked to the navigation system, which is pretty cool, or you can actually have it on strong deceleration, medium deceleration. So that takes away the the customized regeneration system, and it just does it all automatically for you. Charging connector locking mode, so while the vehicle's charging, the charging connector is locked, of course. Again, as with any Hyundai, there's a lot of ability to enable and disable features. So that's just gives you the option to have the charging handle always locked, always unlocked, etc. Charging voice prompt. So when you plug the vehicle in, it'll actually say charging started. Pretty cool. You can adjust the volume of that. It's nuts what you can adjust in this vehicle. Under navigation, allows you to enable and disable vehicle speed. It has traffic information in the 2D and 3D map views. Traffic colors allows you to show, you know, if it's heavy traffic, it's red, that sort of thing. Under guidance, so basically this is just all different settings for the navigation system. I'm not going to get into all of this because all of the standard stuff is basically the way you want it anyway. Under sound, we have the ability to enable and disable that beep. Okay. We have dynamic speed compensation, so the faster you go, the louder it gets. We have a startup volume limit, which is nice, so when you start the car, if the last person that was in the car had the music cranked, it won't freak you out. You can change the position of the audio, you can change the tone of the audio, so crank the bass a little bit. In the guidance settings, we can have the vehicle adjust the volume so that if it's you know, trying to tell you which way to go, it'll turn the volume down a little bit, so it gives you that navigation volume priority. So that's smart. Welcome sound, just you know, when you turn the car on, it plays a little welcome noise for you. There's noise reduction on the FM radio, so that's what that is. Driver assistance, so you can actually have it automatically lower the volume when you're parking. So again, a nice smart little thing there. And then we can also adjust volumes for the Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. Device connection is just where you would go to wirelessly connect your phone up via Bluetooth. Apologize for the going out of focus there, guys. User profile is where we were looking before. We can adjust user profiles. Voice recognition just allows you to see some of the voice recognition prompts, what you can actually say, whether or not you want it to have it beginner, normal, or expert, that sort of thing. Screen layout, we already went through this earlier, so I can skip that. Same with display. Button is where you can adjust what the customizable buttons do. So the custom button down here, I've got that currently set up to open the Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Custom steering wheel button, again, allows you to customize what this button on the steering wheel does. I've got it set to reject call. And then the mode button, what sort of devices you want to be able to access for music playback. And you can also swap the volume and tuning buttons. You can swap them around if you want. Okay, and then under Blue Link, that's where you would just go to change your, to set up your Blue Link. And then under General is where you would do things like software updates, see how much storage space is left, change your date and time, language, keyboard units, media options, that sort of thing. Pretty straightforward stuff there. All right, so I think that concludes everything. I know I'm probably missing a couple of things, but there's so much to talk about on these IONIQ 5s. So many different features, so much customization. I'm tired of talking, and quite frankly, I think I got everything, but yeah, whatever. If you made it all the way to this point, you have no idea the appreciation I have for your support. Please don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Comment below if you have any questions about anything. If there's anything I can help you out with, I'm more than happy to respond to all my comments. If I miss it, I apologize. But again, thank you so much for getting this far and watching the entire video. Have a wonderful day, guys. Take care.